The future is retro. So ever since I laid my hands on the Chromatic by Mod Retro a couple months ago, I have been dying to spend more time with it. Well, my friends, let's party like it's 1995 because I have one. I am going to unbox it and answer the question, how is it any different from an original Game Boy? Or how is it any different from an Analogue Pocket, for that matter? Well, strap in, because we're about to take a ride back through the 90s and see if the Mod Retro Chromatic can earn the title King of the Retro Handhelds. All right, so first things first, what the hell is a Chromatic anyways? Well, it is a little handheld gaming device that plays all of your original Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. You just pop these games right in the back and they play. Now I know what you're saying, but you've already showed us the Analogue Pocket, and the Analogue Pocket already does that. And you're right, but let's take a look at the difference between something like an Analogue Pocket and the Chromatic. And while we're at it, how they stand up to the OG. Mod Retro is a very new company. The Chromatic is their first, I believe it's their first, device to the market. And I gotta say, they are really coming out swinging with this thing. Form factor and size-wise, it's actually very similar to a Game Boy Pocket or a Game Boy Color. And that's what it does. It plays Game Boy and Game Boy Color cartridges. But the real defining factor here is there is zero compromise. You're not gonna find an SD card slot on this. Hell, in fact, right out of the box, it takes AA batteries. Of course, there's a reason for that. Mod Retro's mission with the Chromatic is to create a new Game Boy Color. No emulators, no save states. It is exactly one for one how we used to play it back in the 90s when we were kids. So how does this stack up to something like the Analogue Pocket? As you've seen in a lot of my other videos, the Analogue Pocket is a fantastic device. I actually really like it. I think it's very well made. It also takes Game Boy cartridges. It also takes Game Boy Advance cartridges, and with cartridge adapters, Sega Game Gear, Neo Geo Pocket, Atari Lynx, and TurboGrafx. So this little thing has a lot going for it. Let's think about the term jack of all trades, master of none. For every feature you add to a device like this, you do end up most of the time making sacrifices. So the screen that was on your original Game Boy is not the same screen that is on your Atari Lynx, Game Gear, or even Game Boy Advance for that matter. Which means, in order to make them all run and look halfway decent on one screen, there has to be some exceptions made. This is a really nice high-res screen. But as we all know, these games were not designed for high-res screens. And while I will say the images look nice on here, they are not 100% pixel accurate. The Chromatic, on the other hand, features the world's only 160 by 144 pixel sunlight readable backlit display. So this screen features the same pixel density as a Game Boy Color, which means when you play a Game Boy or a Game Boy Color game on it, it's going to play exactly like the designers intended. But when you play two of the same exact games side by side, you really notice a difference. And I know this sounds crazy with technology and whatnot, but just imagine hooking your NES up to your new OLED television. Depending on how you do it, it can look good, but you are gonna have some weird artifacting, and you're also gonna have a little bit of delay or lag, which is why those games play so much better on a CRT. That was the technology at the time this stuff was designed, but displays like this and CRTs, they're just not around anymore. This display was created by Mod Retro for the Chromatic to be identical to the Game Boy and Game Boy Color. So aside from pulling out your original Game Boy or Game Boy Color, this is one of the only devices that is going to give you 100% pixel accuracy on these old cartridges. And speaking of the display, it's a sapphire crystal. which is very difficult to scratch. So it has that going for it as well. Couple that with an uncrushable magnesium alloy shell, and this thing is pretty much indestructible. It's sort of designed to last forever, which takes me to something we mentioned earlier, and that's the batteries. I'm sure you're saying, oh my God, are we really still using batteries? But let's talk about this for a second. Devices like the Analogue Pocket, or even some of the later Nintendo handhelds, have internal lithium batteries, which is great because you can just plug in a USB cable and charge it. And in most cases, the charges last pretty long. This Analogue Pocket, one charge lasts a hell of a long time. But these degrade over time. So a device with an internal battery, much like your cell phone, is not designed to last a decade. After enough recharges, these things will eventually die, and these are not serviceable. So when you really think about it, you're playing your cartridges from 25, 30 years ago on a device that isn't going to last another 25 or 30 years. Now, the beauty of having something that takes AA batteries, aside from just the retro aesthetic that they're going for, is when they are dead, you take them out and put a new set in. And again, I want to stress, this device is designed to quite literally last forever. It's designed to give to your kids who can give to their kids and keep playing your original cartridges. If you had a non-serviceable, rechargeable lithium battery in this thing, it's not going to last forever. But in case that is a deal breaker for you, they do offer a rechargeable battery pack that you can put in here. So you can remove it and swap it with a new one at any time. On this device, you will not be running emulators. You're going to be running cartridges, all of your original cartridges. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, but there's only so many of those before you've played them all, right? Because they haven't been putting out cartridges in, I don't know, 20 years? Along with the Chromatic, Mod Retro is bringing developers in-house to develop brand new Game Boy Color games on Game Boy Color cartridges. I'm being told that at the time of launch of the Chromatic, this thing is going to have somewhere between 7 and 8 new Game Boy cartridges that you can purchase with your new Chromatic handheld. Not only that, but I'm being told that they're on pace to produce one new game a month, which means in some cases that I've experienced with games like The Mayor of Sanctuary, these are some of the best games that I've played all year. Not to mention they're always looking for new developers to bring in-house and build this library up. Now granted, stuff like this has been around for the last 15 or 20 years, just not a lot of people have known about it. I really like that companies like Mod Retro are trying to bring this sort of thing to the forefront and get it in front of more people. Which takes us to our next topic. Mod Retro has actually partnered with GameStop for a retail exclusive limited edition color of the Chromatic, where you will be able to walk into a GameStop and buy one of these Chromatics. Let's talk about the real nitty-gritty. What is something like the Chromatic gonna cost me? When and where can you get it? As of the time of this recording, when I just checked, the Chromatic is available for pre-order on Mod Retro's website. They're listed at $199.99, which for what you're getting, I think is a very fair price, considering the Analogue Pocket is $230, and that's when you can score one from their website because they're always out of stock, which is also not including any of the cartridge adapters. And I'm being told that these will ship for Christmas. And as you saw a few minutes ago, they come in 7 awesome colors. Now, I do want to get this out there. I did meet the guys at Mod Retro completely by happenstance at the SoCal Gaming Expo back in June of this year. They had these things on the display at the Expo. I was immediately attracted to it because I love handhelds. So I walked over, picked it up, and started playing it. And it just felt so good in my hands. Not to mention that alloy case has a nice cool touch to it. It also has a really nice weight to it. Everything about this I absolutely loved. And since then, I have been hounding them to send me one, so I could test it out. So this device has been sent to me by Mod Retro, but I am giving you my genuine opinion here. That's kind of what I always do. Some other really cool quick features of the Chromatic is everything from a Game Boy and Game Boy Color that you would expect is going to be here. So it is compatible with the link cable if you want to play multiplayer, and it's totally compatible with all of your old Game Boy peripherals. So if you want to use stuff like your Game Boy camera and pull out your old Game Boy printer, you can totally do that with this device. Why do I care about devices like this? I absolutely love and cherish physical media. I don't want to see physical media go away. I don't want to see retail stores go away, which is why I was so thrilled when I saw that they partnered with GameStop. And I understand there's people out there that don't like GameStop or maybe don't like their model, but from my perspective, GameStop is one of the few gaming retail outlets we still have out there. And I'm excited that they're leaning back into stuff like this. There is absolutely a place in this world for stuff like the Analogue or emulation. You see me talk about it all the time. I think the advancements on that front have come really far. And while I think it is a lot of fun, first and foremost for me is preservation of stuff like this. The idea that there's a company out there developing devices like this. They're not putting some high-res screen in here. It's not upscaling. This screen is the same resolution as an original Game Boy Color. Those sorts of things are not easy to come by, and they're certainly not easy to produce. So I personally really like to support stuff like this. Products and companies like this oftentimes can be the heart and soul of our hobbies and passions. In this case, retro gaming. To round out the features on this thing, it does have USB-C. The USB-C can be used to charge the rechargeable battery pack if you choose to use one of those. And this USB-C port does provide video output in case you want to stream or screen record some of your gaming sessions. But that's about as modern as this thing gets. If you don't believe me, check out the partnership that they have. I love this. These are the limited edition COS Pro headphones. They are Mod Retro themed, and they come in every color that the console comes in. And of course, they're wired. And I know some of you will say that I'm blinded by nostalgia, but stuff like this really warms my heart, and I really, really like the fact that my kids growing up will be able to experience these kinds of things if they so choose. These headphones are really cool. It does come with a Mod Retro Tetris cartridge, which is the game that made the Game Boy so damn popular in the first place. And now, the one test you've all been waiting for, the TST, Tofer sniff test. The magnesium alloy case makes it very hard to smell any kind of electronics. Maybe the cartridge slot. It's actually scentless, which is kind of weird, but I'm guessing that that's the alloy case probably doing that. Oh, I know. Here we go. Ready? This will give me that hit I'm looking for. That's a great smell. That's the fresh Christmas gift smell that I was looking for. That's easy a 9 out of 10 on the TST. Now, if you are still confused on the difference between stuff like emulation and original hardware, you should check out this video right here where I explain it all. And after I put dozens of more hours into this Chromatic Mod Retro handheld, and you're just dying to know if I think it's still awesome, you should subscribe right here so you don't miss that video when it comes out in the future. And until then, enjoy the journey.